Hi everybody, and welcome to the third class on wire wrapping and amulet making with John Farris, the Amulet Wizard of Sedona. And the last time he showed you how to wrap the sphere, well, one way, and so in today's class he's going to show us how to do a couple more settings for the sphere, but also how to wrap the different shaped crystals. So, yeah.
I just wanted to finish up real quickly. Hi everybody, and I'm going to compress a lot of information here for you guys, and I just wanted to quickly finish up with the sphere and then lead into Farris's sweet little stone and the titanium, like I said I was. So let's get started. Okay, so basically I had showed you having the 18 gauge with the coil that was on. We wrapped it onto the 18 gauge, and basically where this has gone, you can see how this has ended up. I've basically have the same thing happening here, and now I've added my other coils and foils and whatnot. So that is the direction that this can go ultimately. And also I wanted to show with the sphere, I'm going to show how to make this, I call it a weave, and basically it is two 18 gauges, and this is 28 gauge in here, and as you see on this piece, it's basically a longer version. It's got a really long tail here, and it's wrapped around the sphere as well. So I'm going to show how to do that, and this technique can be applied to this and all kinds of shapes. So
I love how you can make them really different shapes. Like I was just looking at this one. You guys check that out. And it's just how the way he wraps the wire and then shapes it. It's so creative. So after learning these techniques, I guess they can just let it go.
Yeah, it's a foundation. I mean, this is the same thing as this here, but I've shaped it already, and then the sphere fits beautifully right in there, and I've obviously wrapped that around to form fit that and then tied it off. So it's just a very versatile technique to show you guys. So let's get started. Real quickly, I wanted to kind of finish up with just the very simple coil wrap that we've done here and show you how to do Farris's in kind of a really basic way. If you wanted to, if you were a little troubled with the size or not understanding how to go forward. So what you could do is, we have a length of 18 gauge. This is way longer than I need, and I've wrapped the same way I did with the 24 gauge. This is 28 gauge that's wrapped on here, and as you see, you can slide it, and I'm going to show you as well that you can be very creative with when you have, let's say this was going to be a wrap or a part on here. You see that I've cut these little links of, slid this off. This slides on and off, as you see, and I've cut different links of it and slid different beads on here to get a different look, and you can see that is happening here with that, and that's basically the 18 gauge with the 28 gauge that's wrapped over it. So here we have Farris's sweet little crystal, and another way that we could wrap this is we have the 18 gauge with the 28 gauge wrapped on it, and what I'm going to do here is basically just take this Sharpie and wrap this.
Oh, so you're using that as a guide. I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this comes around, and it's kind of, can make it, and this is basically just going to be more of a cage. And you could just drop this in here.
Aww.
And then take your pliers, and you're holding it pretty firmly, but not hurting the crystal or too much. And then you can just twist this in like you're going around a clock, and it comes in tighter, and that'll of course be too small for it to come out the bottom. And then the same thing up here. I'm not putting pressure on the crystal, I'm just folding it around. And just a little bit of practice and working with the wire, and you can really...
So if they make a mistake, can they just pull it and straighten it again and then...
Oh, that's a great question, Farris. Thank you so much. So when I pull this off the spool, it's got a certain kind of hardness to the wire, okay? And once you make it bend, and then you can straighten it out like I said, but it really, I think it compromises the original, the hardness, or it alters how you can work with it after you've bent it and then reshaped it. So
too many times not recommended.
Too many times I would just start over,
okay.
and then you could just, okay, well, I don't like this, I don't want it on there, and you could just basically cut it out of there.
Okay.
And start over again. And that's the great thing about this wire, is you get a big spool of it, and you can start over and work again. Okay, so that is, and then of course when you could take shorter lengths and do, like I was saying, if you just wanted a real simple something here, you can make a shorter length of the 24 gauge with this over it, cut it, and then slide it onto, oops, I cut it too fast. And when you cut these coils like that, it's better to go real slow into it, so it leaves that open instead of crushing the entry to the wire. So then you could just slide that on. That, and then bend it, and then have a nice, you get the idea. You can add stuff to it and bend it. Let's say I was going to attach that on there. Bring this around into a shape that I liked, and then I would, and it's good to hold the piece in the shape that you're going to, like if I want that, let's say for example right there, just like a start of a heart or something, I would keep it in the place in the exact, or as close as I could to the way it's going to set into the composition. This is a little bit hard. That's why I work with bigger stuff.
Bigger
That's why that's more my deal. So, and then I don't want a lot of extra on there, so I can just cut that right there, and then I will pinch it closed. This is obviously a very quicker way than I would show, but I just wanted to show you this technique real quick. And then you could, you're going to do that on the other side, and you can make a really, that could evolve into something really cute and special. But I do want to show this as well, so I'm going to get onto this. This weave is the 18 gauge, like I said, and I'm just going to pull off this length here. I'm going to straighten it, and you can see that it's a little bit curved up, so I'm going to straighten it. And then take a couple of lengths. We're just going to do a shorty for the demo. And I usually measure the same length out like that. And then we have, this is the 28 gauge that's on my spool here. And basically what I've done is I've lined them up. I would probably just get this a little more straight before I went on. So that's a little more even. Okay. So, and basically, I'm left-handed, so just adjust it to your preference. But basically what I'm going to start to do is wrap. Let's pull out a little bit of this and just bring this around. And this will keep the two wires together and form this base. Go ahead.
Oh, and that's how they can do, if they don't have a drill, the technique you showed last time. Yeah, they're just wrapping it with their hands. Yeah.
And when I do this in a drill, I just do the same thing that I did with the 24s. I put the two together, wrapped it around it, and then put it in the end of the drill. But for our purposes, we don't need to do that today. And now I have, and I like to, okay, this is the final resting place of where I want this weave to start. And just so this isn't a loose end here, I'll take this and drop that through the back side, and then now it's locked down, and I can just pull that off.
Interesting.
And there's a little bit of deal here. And Karis, are you going to try a little bit of this?
Sure, I'd love to.
Okay, cool. And so what is happening here is I've got this in my hand, and I'm keeping these a little bit pinched here. And what I want to do is, because I feel like this, it's the more tension that you can put on here, the tighter this weave is going to look. So that is where I'm going with this. And what I do is I wrap it around my fingers, so I've got some tension. And then it's basically getting it through there.
So like making figure eights.
Figure eights to start with.
Symbols, which is an excellent thing to meditate with. If you're putting certain intentions in, you wrap them in that figure eight spiral, and they'll keep fractaling outward.
Yes. And I found that just doing that around it isn't, it needs to, once I get it out a little bit past the neck here, I want to go around one more time before making it to the other one. So it's around, and that keeps the kind of the form together. Because if it just went around on the outside of it, if you pinched it, it wouldn't be sturdy. So. And I'm keeping the tension, and I'm basically pushing. I'm keeping all the tension in the tip of my finger. I'm holding it, as you see, and then I can put that pressure to get that really tight around the bottom of it.
So it's like a few figure eights, and then you loop it around each side several times, or because.
So okay, so here's the beginning of it. So I'll come around.
So loop once
and come around, and then go to the other side.
Okay.
Around.
And then again. Okay.
And around, and now to the other side.
Okay.
So it's basically a full circle around.
Okay.
So it is the figure eight, but it's got a full circle in there.
Right. So it's like a.
So it's anchors that.
One.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, you guys, it's great meditative. You could be setting tons of intentions in this. You're spelling around. Okay. So.
Okay. So yeah.
Okay.
Give it a try.
Let's see here.
And just. There you go.
house is... I could imagine definitely going into a light trance doing this.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Super cool. It's looking good. Do you feel like it's sliding? It's a little bit slidey, or is it okay?
I think it's okay. I'm not sure. I'll have to get you to check it, I think.
Okay. It's looking good.
Guys, this is the first time I've ever done this. This is not an experience.
You're doing great, Farris. She didn't know I was going to ask her to do that.
I'm happy to, though. It's really what I can do. So how long do you just keep doing this?
Yeah, you just make it as and at this point, what could happen is you can make some decisions. Okay, well, I want to keep it thin, and what I would say is for yours, it would be just really, you could see where it's a little bit loose, and it's not bad. It's your first time doing it. Good gracious. So I think it's great. It could be a little bit tighter, but what you've done is really awesome. And so the decisions, you could keep it really thin and just keep the wires close and continue it. Or if you wanted to, if you really wanted a wide one, you could work it while you're coming up the neck here, if you will. You just keep working the wires out.
So when you put bends in it like this one, do you do it as you go, or do you set it first and then bend it once it's done?
No, let's say I would make this first, and this one happens to be I did silver up the neck and then started with the gold for the weave up here. But basically I have made this, and now I will make the decision of where I want to put this. Let's say I was going to actually put it on this sphere that we were working on. So I would take my piece and say, well, okay, or I want a little collar maybe that comes across the top here, and I will shape it before placing it on.
Slowly is good.
Slowly is good.
It's like
just
you're coaxing it into
exactly. And the great thing is, oh well, I don't like that. Okay, well I'm going to bend it back.
And that way you don't have to worry about the structure of the wire. This one, it's already.
Look how cool that could be. Over here. And let's say I wanted to do something a little more like this, which is really kind of a straight across curve. What I would do there is keep it flat on the table and bend it on the table while it's down, so it just keeps that shape.
Okay.
And then you can bend it. There's only so far you can go with that curve, but it's a great look. I mean, come on.
And again, this is if you've set a bunch of intentions in that as you were weaving it, and then you can listen to it too, right? Because it's forming its own consciousness there. The loops and curls of the metal start to generate that electromagnetic field. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this leads me. This is great segue into a way to wrap, let's say, this cluster, this titanium that I had talked about. So we had really made our little loop, and this is going to be our, what I call the attachment, the attachment wire, which is the foundation of the rest of the composition. So we have a little wire, and rather than just using a single strand like we did for Farris's here, what I'm going to do is this gives me 4 places to work with instead of 2 when I'm wrapping a crystal. And you can do this on hers, and you can do this on this as well. You could see if I made a bigger one that I could actually use that as a wrap for that, like I did there. But anyway, I'm going to do this one. So
with these different shapes, you were saying that like if you follow the grooves and the little valleys in there, that's where you can kind of get good grips if you're trying to wrap securely, yeah?
And this is a little bit of a meditative process. When I first sit down with the stone, this is what I really tune in to what needs to happen here, and I'm looking at the crystal. Okay, well, where do I want the top of this to be? And where do I want where's the attachment going to go and not block the face? I want to show off the nicer crystals here, but I also want it secure. I'm also taking in consideration that there's fragile places here, so I don't want to be real rough with how I'm putting this on. And in this case, I probably, instead of using the 18 gauge, I would probably use my 20 gauge, which is a little bit thinner, and it's easier to get around curves. You can see this is a lot thicker, the 18 gauge.
Do you think, so say they're about to wrap something like this where they might have to get some tight curves in, and when we were talking about in the very beginning, like how they can be imbuing the wire with their intentions and how that kind of warms it up too, would you recommend that they be warming the wire up before they start to wrap it around? Will that make it easier, do you think, if it's already warm? It won't matter? Probably not.
I don't think it's enough heat to really like get anything. You really have to work that a lot, but I think it's important to just every action is very conscious and loving towards the piece that you're making. So I'm going to do one really quickly on here so I can show you. So I've got the 20 gauge and we're basically doing the same thing. I'm wrapping it around. I've obviously had some practice with this.
So first the figure eights and then you start to loop it on each side. Okay.
Right. I'm really keeping a lot of tension as much as I can anyway. See how I'm working it open. And I won't need to go too high on it. And the 20 gauge, you have to be careful because it bends so easily. And this will be enough to show where I'm going. And like I said, I can go as far as I want up this neck here, but for right now.
Oh, and I see you moving your fingers up, so there's not like a whole lot of between where this thumb is, and then it's not like you're letting it go all the way up here to keep it stable. Is that what you're doing?
Right, yeah, okay. It's because if I was working up here, it would be too much. So now I want to, that's as far as I want to go to wrap this crystal, so now I want to end this. And so I bring it around once, twice, and then I will cut it flush right there. And then this again, I'm going to tuck behind here and cut that flush. And so you see I have a little bit of a spread here that's going to look really cool on this crystal. Now I haven't even figured out where to wrap this yet, so let me look at that for a second. I feel like it would look pretty good with this showing a lot, right? And maybe doing something back here a little bit out of the way. And I see I have this right here, which would be really strong to work with. So I'm probably going to drop this right back here, and then I can see that I've got some space over here that I could go, or some space right here that I can go.
This is going to be different with any crystal, right? Because they're all unique little landscapes.
Exactly, you just have to figure out and just look at it. It'll tell you.
Yeah, it's funny because I was seeing too when I was holding it before that right there is where a piece wanted to go. So I like that you put it there.
I think it's pretty obvious once you say it's like, okay, well that's going to work there, and look, oh gosh, that's going to work right there, right? So I'm like I said, we're going to try to keep the wire and where the placement of that is going to go in place while I'm doing this, so it keeps it form form to the crystal. Now I'm going to bring it back behind there, right? And this is going to bend easily back there. I'm going to hold that while I'm holding it, and you'll figure out how I've got it nestled on my, I'm keeping some tension with this wire here that comes around the back, so I'm holding that all together. Now this is going to come around the back, and then it's going to make a turn here. I'm probably going to help that because it's a fragile corner. And I might actually, I can see that if I come up here that it wedges in really good. So now I have, that's how it's going to look when it's done. And what I'll do now is I've got the bottom here, and I'll bring these up, and I can see that I want this to have tension across that face there, right? You'd want to, like if you had a string there, you'd want to pull that, right? So I want that to be, I can see that this is going to be the best place to attach that tension, which happens to be the top of the other one that I just wrapped around. So this comes to here. I just broke the crystal, but I'm not going to say that.
Sometimes it happens.
That's hilarious. So I don't need this much on here, this much extra wire. So I'm going to cut a little bit off. I just need to make this turn a couple of times here, right? And you can see that it's, so I'm taking that end, and you can see that if I just go straight, that it's going to run into that wire. So I'm making sure that I'm going to the left of it, so it can go around. And it's basically at this point just winding a clock. Right. And now at this point I can feel some tension there. So what I want to do is I don't want to keep winding it. What I want to do is stop that and cut that right there, or pinch it down. So I'm going to cut a little bit more excess off. And now I'm going to, there's a loop there that I've been making, and what I'm doing is I'm going to pinch that shut and kind of turn it at the same time. And now I can pull this one from the other side a little bit more. I can have that tension, and now I'm going to keep to the left of that, come around. Now you see that now I've got it locked in there. I'm going to cut that excess off, and now I will pinch that shut. Also keeping in mind that I don't want anything sticking out that's going to catch on clothing back there. And this is still going to work, so even though that little part broke off. Now I can bring this up, and you could see that it's pretty clear where these are going to go to stay attached on that, to lock that in, right? On the back here you can see that I would attach, these wires would attach right here and here. So again, I don't need that much wire.
Right, thank you for able to loop that.
Yeah, so on this one I think I'm going to have a little bit of a tail because of attaching it to other parts or whatnot. It's nice to have something sticking up that you can attach wire to.
Yeah, and whenever I see your stuff in process, like, it's always, so you like this one, right? Like, because you can attach it in the future.
Yeah. And this, I'll come back to that, that's funny. Okay, so, yeah, so much to show. So this one I'm going to Now I already have a spot right there that I'm working on, so I can bring this around. And, oh yeah, I was going to leave a tail on that, so I'll cut that one. And now I bring that around and lock that down and pinch that on the other wire. And this can do the same thing. That one's, actually I might attach it to the back here instead of over here, and I could certainly do that, but I want to have a little more stability back over in this area. So now I don't need that much. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to pinch. Now I obviously can't just wrap it around like that, so I've got to make this turn, I've got to make this end go through here, back over here. So this is something really good to show you guys. So basically I'm going to just curl it, and what I've got in my mind is what I'm thinking and seeing is this end of this wire going here. So that's all I'm keeping in my mind right now. It's like, okay, how do I get that wire there? So I'm just following that curve, and you just make that curve till you see that it's going under the wire now. And I have that curvature, so it's going to keep going, right? If I keep bending it at that angle.
Oh, it feels like a puzzle.
Yeah. And now I can't do any more of that. That's about as far as that's going to go. So now I can grab the end and bring that over. And now I've got enough to make it around, and I don't need this to be wrapped too many times. So I'm going to cut the excess off and keep it clean. Pull it a little bit more so I can make that turn. And now I can pinch it from the back side. And I'm really focusing on this part of my pliers, pinching on that end of that wire. So that's really where my mind is. And that's the beginning of that one. Mm-hmm. And that is it's a handy way. There's a ton of different ways that people wrap crystals out there. This is the way that I enjoy and what works for me in my style. And let's see, in this part you see you've got some areas for attachments for, you know, stuff like this. You've got areas to attach these in the back, and I try to keep all those attachments in the back. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be, where are we at with time?
I think that should be about right for this class.
Okay.
One thing I love about your stuff that I'll show is, you guys, even when you look at all the different sides of it, it's always beautiful. And that's why I love the methods that you use, because when you first brought them back around, what I would have probably just naturally done is just twisted them, which mm-hmm. doesn't look at all as polished and beautiful as this, because this looks like almost it's part of the design.
Right.
But yeah, and that's one thing I love about these pieces, because like if you had this on a long pendant, it might be twisting and turning, and it looks beautiful from every side.
Oh.
And so that's something that's neat, I think, about this technique that you're teaching. Thank you.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for your time.
Thanks, you guys. See you next time.